So the final thing, and it was an article last week, it's on WBNS, and it was an article that you had to read very carefully because the article, if you just glanced through, made it sound like that schools across the state of Ohio have gotten a significant windfall from the legalization of sports gambling and or lottery or other games of chance. What the article described was ultimately, though, if you read carefully, that the state of Ohio has always used its general fund to principally fund the state funding formula. In the last few years, they have been able to substitute or plug in revenues from lottery and gaming and now sports gaming. At the end of the day, if you take a look, and it's a massive over 6,000 page bill, but if you look at House Bill 33, which is the 24-25 biennium budget, you can actually see the appropriation items. And overall public school funding to the Ohio Department of Education, which they pass on to schools, is somewhere around $16 billion. Of that, formula funding is a specific line, and about 80 to 85% of the line is general fund. Is it true that the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce gets money from lottery and gaming to plug into that formula funding? It absolutely is true. But the article, if you read it quickly, made it sound like that about $36.9 million was an instant windfall that the district got this year. Well, upon closer inspection, that number is this year's formula funding number. They showed Columbus Public getting, 170 some odd million. It was Columbus Public's formula funding number. They showed Dublin, they showed Westerville, they showed several school districts around the Columbus metro area. And in all cases, really what the article to me was saying was gaming and lottery helps to provide part of the formula funding that goes to schools. It was not an add, it was not an increase, it was not an addition to what we're getting in formula funding. Now, we've talked already, as I've stood at this very dais, not podium, for the past, as we've said, over the past 6 months, we are very fortunate and we're very pleased that the state funding formula has provided Olentangy schools with substantial increases during this biennium budget. But we've also said very clearly in our community conversations, as a direct result, this levy ask operationally is 3 mils, not like it was in 2020, which was 7.4 mils, not like it was in 2016 when it was 5.9 mils, and not like it was in 2011 when it was 7.9 mils.
So again, it's important to say the lowest ask in, what did we decide, 30 years?
30-year operational ask.
Yep.
Lowest operational ask.
Correct. Yeah, so we absolutely know that our state funding has increased, and we're very appreciative, and we say in our community conversations, every dollar we get from the state of Ohio is one less dollar that we ostensibly have to ask for in a levy. And that is reflected in how low this ask is compared to certainly our last three, which all in, including permanent improvement, would have been 7.9, 6.9, 7.9. And this is 4.25.
So to be fair though, we're still only at 2/3 funded only 2/3 of what Fair School Funding Plan calls for.
Correct.
Through the next year.
Correct.
And we can argue about what we would do if we were a mil short, but it would be a different conversation we're having right now if it was fully funded.
Correct. If the formula was fully funded right now, I can't go on the record to say that I know for a fact it would completely eliminate the need, because our permanent improvement is drastically needed when we have 27 facilities. And should this bond issue pass, we'll have 32. but it would take an even more substantial bite out of the operational ask if the formula was fully funded. And we have told our community multiple times, we will continue to work with our state legislators to make sure that the formula is funded as originally intended.
So going back to your gambling, lottery, in reality, there's really more research that suggests the state legislatures actually cut their contributions to education almost along the same lines of the money they've received from the lottery magically. So when they get X dollars, there's a corresponding drop. Now, I understand over time that has increased, but that drop, that increase can also be, I don't think it's one-to-one, but there's more research that shows that those funds, am I saying it right, are fungible, which means, yes, we're getting money from this, but unlike the promises made in the early 1970s that said the income tax in Ohio would solve school funding or lottery would solve school funding, not sure if that has happened.
I would only say it this way. At no point in time has all of the proceeds from gaming, lottery, or other legalized state gambling simply been used to completely augment, increase, or add to educational funding. I don't know the exact formula of how it has, in technical terms, I hate to use this word because it sounds awful from a treasurer. We hate when people use the word supplant. How much has lottery funds supplanted what would have otherwise come from the general fund? I don't know. I can't even gather what that might be. What I can say with full confidence, it's not as if, let's say the budget in 1 year was $2, and now all of a sudden lottery funding gives you 3 more. We didn't just all of a sudden jump up to 5. That's never happened.